Jake stood at the edge of the rocky cliff, his eyes scanning the alien landscape below. His ship had crashed here, and now he was stranded on a strange world. The sky above was a shade of purple, with two suns slowly setting in the distance. The air was thick with an unknown scent. The sounds of strange creatures echoed through the vast, empty landscape. He had been trying to fix his ship for days, but nothing seemed to work. Every time he thought he had made some progress, something else would break. It was starting to feel like the universe was playing a cruel joke on him, but today something was different. Jake was working on the damaged engines when he heard a sound. It was soft at first, like a whisper on the wind. He looked up, his heart skipping a beat as he saw a figure in the distance. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. But then the figure moved closer. It was a girl, but she wasn't like any human girl he had ever seen. Her skin was a strange shade of blue, and it seemed to shimmer with a faint glow. Her hair was silver, flowing down her back like liquid light. She wore clothes that looked like they were made of some kind of metallic fabric, reflecting the light of the setting suns. Jake couldn't help but stare. He had never seen anyone like her. She moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural, her steps light and silent as she approached him. He felt a strange pull in his chest, something he couldn't explain. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Was she real, or was he just losing his mind? She stopped a few feet away from him, her eyes locking with his. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Her eyes were an intense shade of green, like two jewels that seemed to pierce right through him. He felt exposed, like she could see everything. Inside him, all his thoughts and fears. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The only sound that escaped was a soft whisper, almost to himself. What a beautiful girl. As soon as the words left his lips, Jake froze. He realized, with a shock, that the alien girl was still staring at him. She wasn't moving, wasn't reacting. She just stood there, her eyes fixed on him as if she had heard every word. A rush of embarrassment flooded over him. He had spoken out loud, not realizing that she could hear him. Was she offended? Was she angry? He didn't know what to do. He opened his mouth again, but no words came out this time. He could only stand there, awkwardly meeting her gaze. The silence stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity. Jake felt like he was caught in some strange dream, unable to wake up. The alien girl didn't speak, didn't move. It was as if time itself had stopped. Jake tried to clear his throat, to say something, anything, but the words caught in his chest. Then, slowly, the alien girl took a step forward. Her movements were slow, deliberate. It was almost as if she was trying to understand Jake, just as much as he was trying to understand her. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression that was difficult to read. Jake swallowed, hard, his heart pounding in his chest. Had no idea what to do now. His mind raced for something to say, but the only thing that came to him was the overwhelming feeling of awe. He had never been in the presence of someone like her before. It wasn't just her beauty that took his breath away. It was the mystery, the sense of something far greater than anything he had ever known. The alien girl continued to stare at him, her eyes softening, but she still didn't speak. Jake tried to focus, to figure out what he should do next. He had no idea how to communicate with her. What if she didn't understand him? What if she was dangerous? He quickly looked around as if searching for something to say, but all he saw were the vast, empty cliffs and the strange alien trees that surrounded him. The world felt silent, as if it was holding its breath. Finally, the girl moved again. This time, she reached out, her hand extending toward Jake. He was frozen for a moment, unsure of what she wanted. Was she going to hurt him, or was she offering something? Slowly, cautiously, Jake took a step back. The last thing he wanted was to anger her, but then with a soft, almost musical voice, she spoke. "I am not here to hurt you." Jake's eyes widened. She spoke English. How was that possible? Before he could ask her how she knew his language, she continued, "You are human. You are not like the others." Jake's mind raced. Others? Who were the others? What did she mean? He opened his mouth to speak, but once again, the words caught in his throat. He was too stunned to say anything. The reality of the The situation was sinking in. He wasn't just stuck on some unknown planet. He wasn't alone. There was someone or something here with him, and she had just spoken to him. But what did it mean? What was going on? The alien girl stepped even closer, her eyes never leaving his. She seemed calm, almost serene, but there was something else in her gaze, a depth of knowledge, of ancient power. That made Jake feel like he was standing in the presence of something far beyond human comprehension. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. His heart raced. He couldn't help but feel drawn to her in a way he couldn't explain. Before he could say anything, the girl spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "You are not alone here, human. You have much to learn." She turned, walking away slowly, her steps light and graceful. Jake stood there, his heart still pounding in his chest, unsure of what had just happened. He had whispered those words, thinking he was alone, but now he knew that nothing about this planet or this encounter was as it seemed. Jake watched the alien girl walk away, his mind spinning with confusion and questions. His heart still raced in his chest, and he could hardly believe what had just happened. She had spoken to him perfectly in English, and yet the whole situation felt unreal. Was he dreaming? How did she know his language? Why was she here? He stood frozen, staring after her as she moved with a strange grace. The air around him seemed to hum with energy, and the world felt completely different. Everything seemed so much bigger now. The alien world that had once felt empty and hostile suddenly felt alive, as if it was filled with mysteries waiting to be discovered. Jake snapped out of his daze and hurried to catch up with her. He couldn't just stand there. He needed answers. His mind kept racing, and with each step, more questions filled his thoughts. What was she? Him. What did she mean when she said, "You are not like the others"? As he rounded a large boulder, he finally caught up with her. The alien girl was standing by a large tree, staring at the sky as the two suns set in the distance. Her eyes were still focused on the sky, but when Jake approached, she turned her head slightly, as if sensing his presence. "Why did you speak to me?" Jake asked, his voice hoarse. He could feel his heart pounding again as he tried to make sense of everything. "How do you know my language?" The girl looked at him for a long moment, her green eyes piercing through him. She didn't speak right away, and Jake began to feel a little uncomfortable. She was so calm, so composed. But her silence made him feel like he was the one on the outside, unsure of how to proceed. Finally, she spoke again, her voice soft, yet clear. "I have been here for a long time," she said slowly, as if choosing her words carefully. "The language of your people is not unknown to me." Jake frowned. She had been here for a long time. That didn't make any sense. How was that possible? But how do you know about humans? How do you know Earth? The alien girl took a deep breath, her gaze still focused on the distant horizon. She looked back at him and nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. "I know many things. Human. I have been watching, waiting." Jake blinked in surprise. Watching, waiting. Who was she? Why was she watching him? "Why me?" Jake asked, feeling a bit more confused by the second. "Why did you choose to speak to me? What do you want?" There was a long pause. Jake watched as the girl closed her eyes for a moment, as if she were searching for the right words. When she opened them again, her eyes were filled with something he couldn't quite understand, maybe sadness. Or perhaps something deeper. "You are different," she said finally. "Not like the others I have seen. There is something in you something in humans, ... that I need to understand." Jake was taken aback. She needed to understand humans. What could that mean? He took a step closer, trying to read her expression. "What are you talking about? What do you mean by something?" "In humans." The alien girl didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at the ground, her fingers tracing patterns in the dirt. For a moment, it felt like she wasn't even there with him, like her mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away. "I have lived alone here for many years," she said quietly. "I have learned much about the creatures of this world. I have seen many of your kind pass through, but none are like you. None have this... strength. Jake felt a strange mix of emotions at her words. Was she saying he had something special? Something no one else had? Strength? He repeated, trying to understand. What do you mean? The girl looked up at him again, her eyes locking with his. The others are... weak. Their minds are clouded, controlled by fear. But you are different. There is something in you. Something that I have never seen before. Jake didn't know what to say. He had never felt special. He was just a regular astronaut stuck on a strange planet with no way to get back home. But the way she looked at him made him feel like he mattered, like his presence here had a purpose. Even though he didn't fully understand what that purpose was. I don't feel different, Jake admitted, feeling a little vulnerable. I'm just trying to survive here like anyone else would. Girl shook her head slowly, her silver hair shifting in the light. It is more than survival. It is the way you face the unknown. The way you... Jake felt his heart beat a little faster. Could she be right? Could he really be different? From others in some way? He wasn't sure what she meant. But something about her words struck a chord in him. The silence between them grew again, and Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. This alien girl, who had watched him from afar, who seemed to know so much about him, was now standing here, speaking to him like he was someone important. But what did that mean for him? What did it mean for his survival on this alien world? I know what you want from me, Jake said finally, the uncertainty in his voice clear. But I need your help. I can't stay here forever. I need to fix my ship? The girl looked at him for a long moment, as if considering his request. Then, slowly, she nodded. I can help you, she said softly. But it will not be easy. There are things you do not understand. Jake felt a surge of relief at her words, but the unease in his chest remained. What was she talking about? What was so difficult about fixing a ship? But for now, he pushed those questions aside. He had just made the first connection with an alien. That had to count for something. Thank you, Jake said, his voice quieter now. I don't know what's happening, but I'm willing to find out. The girl smiled faintly, her eyes still unreadable. You will learn soon enough, human. But for now, you must trust me. Jake nodded, feeling a strange mix of hope and uncertainty. He had no idea what he was getting into, but one thing was certain. His life had just become a lot more complicated. The next morning, Jake woke to the sound of distant birds chirping in the strange alien trees. The sky had turned a deep orange as the second sun began to rise, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. It was a beautiful sight, but Jake's mind wasn't on the sunrise. He was still thinking about the alien girl Zara. He couldn't get her out of his head. Her words, her eyes, everything about her was a mystery. She had said that humans were different, that there was something inside of him that made him stand out. What could it be? He had no idea. All he knew was that he had to find a way off this planet, and if Zara could help him, then he needed to trust her. After a quick breakfast of some strange fruit he had found, Jake set off to find her. He had spent the night near the crash site, trying to fix the damaged ship, but progress had been slow. It was hard to work with so many unknowns. And he still didn't fully understand the alien technology that powered his ship as he walked through the forest. Jake's thoughts raced. What had Zara meant by strength? What was it that made humans so special in her eyes? He felt ordinary, just a human with a shipwreck on a strange planet. But the more he thought about it, the more he wondered if there was more to this world and to himself than he realized. When Jake finally reached the clearing where he had last seen Zara, he'd found her sitting on a large rock, staring out at the horizon. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes seemed lost in thought, distant and far away. As Jake approached, she turned her head and smiled faintly as if she had known he was coming. You're up early? Jake said, trying to break the silence. Zara nodded, her green eyes glinting in the soft morning light. I always wake with the sun. It reminds me of my home. Jake sat down beside her, unsure of what to say. I've been thinking a lot about what you said yesterday, about humans being different. What do you mean by that? Zara didn't answer right away. She seemed to consider his words carefully before speaking, her voice soft but firm. You humans are unique. Your species is not like the others I have encountered. You have a strength inside of you that the others lack. Jake frowned. Kind of strength? I don't feel any different than anyone else. Zara turned to face him fully, her eyes locking with his. It is not a strength that can be seen. It is something deeper. You adapt quickly to new situations. You push through hardship. You are not bound by fear the way others are. Jake felt a pang in his chest. Was that what she had seen in him? Was that why she had spoken to him? But he didn't feel special. He didn't feel strong. He was just trying to survive. So, you're saying that because I'm human, I have this strength inside me? He asked, still trying to make sense of what she was saying. Zara nodded. Yes, but it is not just about physical strength. It is about your will to survive, your ability to fight against the odds. Most of the species I have encountered are controlled by fear, ruled by their instincts. But you, humans are different. You can push past fear, think beyond it. Jake stared at her, feeling more and more confused. But why me? What makes me so different from anyone else? Zara's eyes softened, and for the first time she seemed almost vulnerable. I have seen many things in my time on this planet. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I've seen creatures that could crush entire worlds with their power, but they were all bound by fear. Fear of losing power, fear of the unknown, fear of death. But humans, you are not like that. Jake was silent for a moment, trying to absorb what she was saying. He had never thought of himself as brave. He'd just been doing his job exploring space, traveling the galaxy. Sure, he had faced challenges before, but nothing like this. It's nothing as strange and terrifying as being stranded on an alien planet with no way home. I don't know what to say, Jake muttered, his voice barely. Above a whisper, Zara gave him a small smile. You do not need to say anything. You are living it. Your actions speak louder than words. Just as Jake was about to respond, a loud crash echoed through the forest. Zara immediately stood up, her body tense, her eyes scanning the surrounding. Trees. Jake's heart raced. What was that? Had something heard them? Was there danger nearby? Zara held up a hand, signaling for Jake to be quiet. Stay close, she whispered. Something is coming. Jake's mind raced. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This planet wasn't as empty as he had thought. There were dangers lurking in the shadows. Things he couldn't even begin to understand. The sound grew louder, and Jake's nerves tightened. What was out there? And was it coming for them? Zara stepped forward, her body moving with fluid grace. Stay behind me, she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. Jake hesitated, but then followed her lead. His hand instinctively reached for the laser pistol holstered at his side. He had no idea if it would help, but he had to be ready for whatever was coming. The creature emerged from the trees, a massive, hulking figure with glowing eyes and sharp, jagged teeth. Its body was covered in thick armored scales that gleamed. In the light, it was at least twice the size of Jake, and it moved with a terrifying speed. Before Jake could react, Zara was already in motion. She stepped forward, her hands glowing with an eerie light. She raised them toward the creature, and suddenly, a wave of energy shot from her palms, striking the creature with an immense force. The beast was thrown backward, crashing into the trees. Jake stood frozen, his mouth agape. He had never seen anything like it. Zara wasn't just strong, she was powerful, in ways he couldn't understand. Zara turned back to him, her expression calm. Stay here, she said. This is my fight. Jake didn't argue. He watched as Zara faced the creature, her eyes filled with a quiet determination. He knew then that this planet and Zara were more than he could ever have imagined. The creature roared as it staggered to its feet, shaking off the blast from Zara's energy wave. Its glowing eyes locked onto her with a mixture of rage and confusion. Jake's heart was racing, but his hands were trembling. He had never been in a situation like this before. His mind screamed for him to help, but he had no idea how. Zara was clearly in control, and she wasn't asking for his help. Zara stood firm, her feet planted on the ground as she faced the beast. Her posture was calm, almost serene, as if she had faced this sort of thing many times before. The glowing light from her hands intensified, casting long shadows across the clearing. Jake watched, amazed by her power, but also fearful of what might happen next. Without warning, the creature lunged at Zara with terrifying speed. Its massive jaws snapped open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Zara raised her hands, and in an instant, a powerful barrier of light surrounded her, blocking the creature's attack. The creature slammed against the barrier with a deafening crash, its claws scraping against the invisible force field. Zara didn't flinch. She didn't seem afraid at all. She simply held her ground, her eyes focused and determined. The creature continued to thrash, trying to break through the barrier, but Zara's energy field held strong. Jake's pulse raced as he realized that Zara wasn't just fighting to protect herself, she was fighting to protect him too. He glanced around, his mind racing. Could he help? What could he do? He looked down at the laser pistol strapped to his side, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. The creature was too powerful, but there had to be something he could do. Couldn't just stand there and watch. Suddenly, a thought struck him. The ship. Maybe he could use the ship's remaining systems to help. He knew he was running out of time, but if Zara was protecting him, he had to find a way to repay her. I'll be right back. Jake shouted to Zara, although he wasn't sure she could hear him over the chaos. Without waiting for a response, he turned and ran toward the crash site. He moved quickly, trying to avoid getting too close to the fight. He could hear the creature's angry roars in the distance, but he focused on the ship. It was still partially intact, and he could see the small power core glowing faintly. If he could get the ship's weapons systems online, he might be able to help Zara. Jake reached the ship and crawled through the broken door, his hand shaking as he pulled himself inside. The control panel was a mess, wires hanging loose, and several screens were cracked, but he could still make out enough to know that he could access the weapons systems. His fingers moved quickly over the console, typing in the commands he remembered from his training. It wasn't easy. The systems were damaged, and he had to bypass several security protocols. But he was focused, his mind clear. He couldn't afford to fail now. As the weapon systems powered up, Jake felt a surge of hope. He might actually be able to help. Outside, the battle continued. Zara's barrier of light flickered with each hit, but it was holding. The creature was growing weaker, but it wasn't giving up. It roared again, louder this time, as if it was preparing for a final attack. Jake knew he didn't have much time left. The weapon systems were online, but he needed to aim them. His heart raced as he ran to the cockpit, scanning the view outside. He could see Zara, still standing strong, the creature's claws just inches from her. Taking a deep breath, Jake aimed the ship's weapons at the creature. His hands were still shaking, but he was determined. He pressed the button, sending a blast of energy flying toward the beast. The shot hit its target with precision, knocking the creature back and throwing it off balance. The creature roared in pain, but it was still alive. Come on, Jake muttered to himself. Just one more. He fired again, this time hitting the creature square in the chest. It stumbled backward, its massive body crashing to the ground. The beast let out one last guttural roar before collapsing unum. Jake felt a rush of relief wash over him. He had done it. The creature was down. But his relief was short-lived. As he turned to look back at Zara, he saw her slump to her knees, her energy field flickering and then fading away entirely. No, Jake shouted, rushing out of the ship and back toward her. He reached her side just as she collapsed, her breathing shallow. Her once strong presence seemed diminished, and Jake felt a pang of fear in his chest. Zara's eyes fluttered open, and she smiled weakly at him. You, ... helped, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Thank you. Beside her, his hands hovering over her as if unsure what to do. Zara, you were incredible. But ... what happened? Zara's smile faded, and she winced slightly, closing her eyes. I've not fought like this in a long time, she said softly. The creature was strong, but my energy is limited. I cannot sustain this level of power for too long. Jake felt a rush of guilt. She had been protecting him all this time, and now she was hurt. I shouldn't have left you, he muttered. I should have stayed and helped. Zara shook her head slightly, her eyes soft. You helped in your own way. You gave me the strength to finish the fight. Jake looked at her, his heart heavy. He didn't know what to do, but he couldn't just leave her like this. He gently lifted her in his arms, trying to be careful of her injured form. I'm not going to leave you, he said firmly. We'll figure this out together. Zara looked up at him, her expression softening. For the first time, Jake saw a glimmer of something more in her eyes. It was trust. And maybe, just maybe, something more than that. They had survived the battle, but the real challenge was still ahead. Jake had no idea what lay in store for them, but for the first time since his crash, he felt like he wasn't alone. The air was still. After the battle, everything seemed strangely quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. The creature was gone, lying motionless on the ground, its once glowing eyes now dim. But Jake couldn't relax, not yet. Zara was. Still in his arms, her breathing shallow, her body weak from the energy she had used to protect them both. Zara, Jake whispered softly, trying to keep the worry out of his voice. You're going to be okay. We'll get you help. Zara's eyes fluttered open, her lips curling into a faint smile. I will recover, she said, though her voice was weak. I just... need time. Jake gently set her down on the soft ground, making sure she was as comfortable as possible. He could feel his heart racing with fear for her. She had saved his life twice now, and here she was, barely able to stand. What would happen if she didn't recover in time? They couldn't afford to wait for too long. I don't know what to do, Jake said quietly, pacing around her. I can't fix you. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know what your species needs. Zara reached up weakly, her hand touching his arm. I'll be fine, she said, her eyes full of trust. But we... we must leave this place. It's not safe here. Jake stopped pacing and looked down at her. What do you mean? The creature's gone and we're safe, right? Zara's expression grew more serious. She struggled to sit up, wincing in pain but not showing any sign of giving up. There are others like it, she said, and they are not far. Jake's heart skipped a beat. Others like it? What do you mean? Are we being hunted? Zara nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a quiet strength that amazed him. Yes. They know you are here. They know you are human. Jake's mind raced. The last thing he had expected was to be hunted. He had only come to this planet to explore, to conduct his mission. Now it seemed like everything had turned upside down. Why are they after me? What do they want with a human? Zara's eyes narrowed. You are a threat to them. The others fear your kind. They know you can survive, adapt, and fight in ways they cannot. Jake clenched his fists. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be a threat. I just want to go home. I understand, Zara said softly, her gaze full of sympathy. But for now, we must survive. And that means we have to leave this place before they come for us. Jake nodded, though he still didn't fully understand what Zara was talking about. Who were these enemies, and why were they so afraid of humans? He had so many questions, but now wasn't the time for them. He had to focus on getting them to safety. Without another word, he helped Zara to her feet, supporting her as they made their way toward the wreckage of the ship. Zara was still weak, but she was determined. Jake admired her strength, even in her condition. She had been through so much already, yet she was still fighting for both of them. The trek back to the ship felt longer than it had before. Jake kept an eye on their surroundings, aware that they could be attacked at any moment. Every rustle in the trees made him jump. Every shadow felt like an enemy. His mind raced, but there was no time for fear. Not when Zara was relying on him. When they reached the ship, Jake carefully helped Zara inside. The interior was a mess, but there was enough of the ship left to make it functional. He had worked on it before the battle, but now it was clear that they would need to leave soon. They couldn't risk staying here any longer. The longer they waited, the more danger they were in. Zara sat down in the pilot's seat, her breathing labored but steady. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again, looking at Jake. "We must leave now," she said, her voice stronger than it had been before. "There is no time to waste." Jake nodded, quickly making his way to the ship's controls. "I'll do what I can to get us off the ground. Hold on tight." Zara's gaze softened. "You are brave, human. I will never forget what you've done for me." Jake didn't respond right away. He was too focused on getting the ship ready. He needed to get them both off this planet, away from the threat that was closing in. There was no time for gratitude. Not yet. He worked quickly, trying to get the ship's engines online. The sound of the systems powering up filled the cabin, and Jake could feel his pulse quicken with each passing second. It wasn't perfect. The ship was damaged, but it would have to do. It didn't have the luxury of waiting. The ship finally hummed to life, and Jake breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to Zara. "We're ready." Zara nodded, her expression still serious. "Let's go." Jake took one last look at the planet outside, the strange alien world that had trapped him here. There were so many unanswered questions. Who were these enemies? What did they want with humanity? And how had Zara come to be here on this planet, all alone? But there was no time for answers. Not now. The ship rose slowly into the air, lifting off the ground with a soft rumble. As they soared into the sky, Jake looked out the window, watching. As the planet below grew smaller and smaller, the danger wasn't gone yet. They still had a long way to go before they were safe. But for the first time since the crash, Jake felt like they had a chance. Zara's voice broke the silence. "We will need to travel far from here. There are many dangers in the galaxy, but we will face them together." Jake looked over at her. Her eyes filled with determination. He nodded, knowing that this was only the beginning of their journey. But as long as they were together, he wasn't afraid. The ship broke through the atmosphere, leaving the alien planet behind. Jake gazed out the window as the world they had just fled grew smaller and smaller, the blue and green hues of the planet fading into the blackness of space. He felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, fear, and confusion, all tangled up together. He had escaped, yes, but at what cost? Zara was still sitting in the pilot's seat beside him, her face pale but determined. She hadn't said much since they left the planet. Jake wanted to ask her about everything, about the enemies she had warned him about her past, and about the strength she had mentioned. But he knew now wasn't the time. Zara was still recovering, and he needed to focus on getting them both to safety. "How are you feeling?" Jake finally asked, his voice soft. Zara turned her head to meet his gaze. Her green eyes still sharp, though her face showed the wear of the recent battle. "I am better," she replied quietly. "I will be fine. We need to be careful. We have made an enemy of those creatures. It will come after us." Jake nodded, trying to wrap his mind around everything she had said. "Who are they, Zara? Why do they want humans?" Zara took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts. "They are the Xerics," she said. "A powerful species, but they are driven by fear. Fear of losing control, fear of anything that threatens. Their way of life, inhumans. ... You are a threat to them." Jake frowned, his mind racing with the new information. "What makes us a threat? We're just people. We don't have any special powers like you." Zara's eyes softened, and she turned her gaze back to the stars outside the window. "It is not about power. It is about your potential. Humans have an ability to adapt, to survive, and to overcome obstacles. The Xerics fear that they have seen what humans are capable of, and they do not want you to become too strong. They know that you could one day challenge them." Jake's mind spun with what she had said. A species that feared humans? He could hardly believe it. But the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. He had already survived one crash landing, fought a terrifying alien creature. Now he was escaping from a planet with an unknown enemy after him. Maybe there was something special about humans after all. "So, we're not just running from them now," Jake said, his voice tense. "We're going to have to fight them, aren't we?" Zara looked at him, her expression Serious, if we want to survive, yes. But we will need more than just courage. We need allies. And we need to understand the Xerics better. Jake nodded. Allies, huh? Any idea where we'll find those? Zara's lips curved into a faint smile, though it was brief. I know of a place. A station where many different species come together. It is neutral ground. There we can find information, can find help. Jake felt a sense of hope stir inside him. A place where they could get information and allies. That sounded like exactly what they needed. But there was still so much they didn't know. How would they get there? How would they find the help? They needed... What's the station called? Jake asked, his curiosity piqued. It is called Talora Station, Zara replied. It is on the edge of the galaxy, far from the Xaric territory. It is a place where traders, diplomats, and explorers gather. There we may find what we need. Jake ran a hand through his hair, trying to absorb everything she was saying. Sounds like our best shot. But will the Xarics know about it? Zara shook her head. No, the Xerics do not like to venture that far from their own space. It is too unpredictable for them. That is why it is safe for now. Jake was still uneasy. Nothing felt truly safe when you had powerful enemies chasing you, but Zara seemed to believe that this was their best chance. And maybe she was right. They didn't have many options left. How long will it take us to get there? Jake asked, hoping the answer would give him some peace. A few days. If the ship holds up, Zara said, her tone calm but focused. We will need to avoid detection. The Xerics have powerful ships that can track us if they know where to look. Jake didn't like the sound of that, but he had no choice. Had to trust Zara. She had been right so far. She had saved him. More than once, and had kept him alive when things seemed impossible. And now, she was offering him a way out, a way to survive. We'll make it, Jake said, his voice steady. We have to. Zara looked at him, her eyes softening. Yes, we will, but we must be careful. We have made an enemy of the Xerics, and they will not stop until they find us. Our journey is just beginning. Jake took a deep breath, his heart racing again. He'd never expected any of this. He'd come to explore space, to follow in the footsteps of explorers before him. But now, he was caught in something much bigger than himself. Something that could change the course of human history. We'll make it through this, Zara, Jake said, more to himself than to her. We'll fight, we'll survive. And we'll make it to Talora Station. Zara nodded, her expression unwavering. Together, the ship soared through the stars, the vastness of space stretching out before them. Jake looked out the window again, his thoughts filled with questions, but also a newfound sense of determination. The journey ahead would not be easy and danger. Still lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like they had a fighting chance, and no matter what came next. He knew one thing for sure, he wouldn't be alone.